Hello, my name is Estefania Morante and my topic is exploring the relationship between emotional brain formation, stress, depression, food addiction, and weight. Stress and food intake. In the short term, stress can shut down appetite. The nervous system sends messages to the adrenal glands atop the kidneys to pump out the hormone epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Epinephrine helps trigger the body's fight-or-flight response, a red-hot physiological state that temporarily puts eating on hold. But if stress persists, it's a different story. The adrenal glands release another hormone called cortisol that increases appetite and may also ramp up motivation in general, including the motivation to eat. Depression and food. Different brain responses are associated with different changes in appetite, which could indicate that there are different subgroups of depression. Beyond affecting your hunger levels, depression can influence the types of food you eat. It's common for people who are experiencing depression and feeling unmotivated to opt for a quick and convenient meals or snacks. Food addiction. A food addiction or a eating addiction is a behavioral addiction that is characterized by the compulsive consumption of palatable foods, which markedly activate the reward system in humans and other animals despite adverse consequences. Applications in nutrition. Psychological disorders encompass a variety of conditions. Several of these conditions can result in a decreased quality of life. Some examples of these psychological disorders include binge eating disorder, bipolar and manic depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorders. An increased risk of developing major depression, bipolar disorder, and panic disorder has recently been associated with obesity. Studies have also established an association between obesity and binge eating disorder.
Dr. Lee, what is emotional eating?
Emotional eating is when you eat for reasons other than hunger. It often occurs when you are lonely, bored, sad, anxious, and sometimes even happy. Missing key nutrients in your diet can also trigger emotional eating.
So you are saying that emotional eating is not caused by hunger?
Yes, that is correct. People with variants in certain genes, particularly those involved in the brain's reward system, are more likely to experience emotional eating.
Really? How is the brain involved?
Certain foods you have had in the past generated happy molecules in your brain. This good feeling led you to want these foods again. We call these foods trigger foods. When you are unhappy or nervous, your brain sends a signal, making you crave your trigger foods, which give you a quick fix and help you feel better. The mechanism is similar to drug addiction.
Interesting. But how does missing key nutrients in your diet lead to emotional eating?
Well, mood swings and cravings are often caused by malnutrition. For example, not enough of certain essential amino acids or fatty acids in your diet can cause anxiety or depression.
Oh wow. I had no idea.
You see, when your diet is deficient in a key nutrient, your brain sends a signal, driving you to seek out food in order to meet your nutritional need. But a lot of people don't understand what their body is trying to tell them. They simply choose the foods they had before. With the wrong food choices, they end up overeating and still don't feel satisfied. This happens more to people who eat a lot of sugary and fatty foods because their diet is high in calories but low in nutrients.
I see. So is this how emotional eating causes weight gain?
Yes and no. It really depends on what types of foods you crave and also what satiety genes you have.
Okay, can you explain a bit more?
Of course. If you have low satiety genes, you are more likely to crave and eat more energy-dense foods like donuts, fatty meats, chocolate, and nuts. When you combine this with emotional eating, it can easily lead to weight gain and obesity.
Well, that is not good at all. What can you do to help this?
The best strategy is to identify the root cause of your emotional eating and eliminate it.
How can you do that?
The first step is to register at GB Health Watch. You can use the GB Online tool to check and see if you are lacking key nutrients in your diet. If your GB score is low, this is a good indication you are. Then, you should follow the tips provided to correct your nutrition imbalance. Next, start using some simple techniques to manage your emotional eating episodes. Do not buy or keep your trigger foods in your home. Instead, pre-portion out healthy snacks. that support your nutritional needs in small bags or containers. Keep these on hand to eat when you have cravings. This way you can cut down on calories and boost your mood at the same time.
Thanks, Dr. Lee. I'm definitely signing up at GB Health Watch now.
Pros and cons. Research has shown that as you gain weight to levels of overweight and obesity, your risk for the following conditions also increase: obesity, going out of your way to obtain certain foods, continuing to eat certain foods even if no longer hungry, eating in secret, isolation, decreased energy, chronic fatigue, sleep disorders such as oversleeping or insomnia. Issue apply in Ecuador. In Ecuador, the age-standardized prevalence of overweight was 39.5%, 22.3% was obese, and 31.2% had a metabolic syndrome. The prevalence of obesity, low HDL cholesterol, and abdominal obesity were higher in women than in men, whereas men had a higher prevalence of hypertension. Prevalence of both obesity and metabolic syndrome was higher in urban areas and low-altitude regions, coast and Galapagos, and a high socioeconomic status. Conclusion: if you try self-help options but you still can control emotional eating, consider therapy with a mental health professional. Therapy can help you understand why you eat emotionally and learn coping skills. Therapy can also help you discover whether you have an eating disorder, which can be connected to emotional eating.
When it comes to emotional eating, the first thing you want to do is recognize the relationship between how you feel and how you consume food. Because if you're not aware of that relationship, then it's going to be really hard to change. Now, the single most important tool for actually discovering that relationship is by keeping a food journal. A food journal is not just where you write down the foods, but I want you to write down how you felt that day. And if you felt bad, what was it that happened that made you feel bad on that day? And what I've seen is that when patients start recording these things, they become aware of how their emotions are very often influencing their relationship to food. And that's the start of the change. If you're using food as a coping strategy, well, we're going to have to find better ways for you to cope. Very often, that's where physical activity is probably the best solution. Because here's what physical activity does for people. It gives you a routine. And so by having that structure, that also is going to influence how you eat. But when it comes to emotional eating, what's more important what physical activity actually does for how you feel. It gets rid of stress. It makes you feel happier. It makes you feel better about yourself. It improves your self-esteem. And so if you're a stress eater, or if you're someone who's eating because you're depressed, exercise can actually fix that.